My name is Gavin Crawford. I'm a comedian, an actor, and a writer. You might remember me from all of those things, some of those things, or you might not remember me at all, if you're my mother.
Oh, even just hearing that intro lands so hard. If you have been touched by dementia, Alzheimer's in particular, like the two of us have had in our families, this is a must-listen to podcast by an incredibly talented individual.
Let's set it up. Gavin Crawford, do you recognize him? This hour is 22 minutes. He's the host of Because News, and he is also the host of a brand new podcast called Let's Not Be Kidding, and it essentially tracks his mom's dementia journey. And he does it through a little bit of humor, and you might go, what the heck is funny about dementia? There are moments, trust me.
Yeah.
And he gets really raw and emotional too.
Yeah, it gets very sad as well as entertaining and fun. It's unexpected.
Let's dip in again just for a little taste of the podcast.
Like, she's not missing anyone because she doesn't remember anyone. So that's kind of lucky for her.
In this podcast, I'm trying to find a way to talk about the harrowing and hilarious experiences I've had dealing with my mother's increasing dementia. Because anyone that's been on this journey or has dealt with kind of long grief knows there's jokes to be had, and you kind of need to have them.
Oh boy, it is such a
Love
long
this
goodbye.
series.
It is.
Absolutely ate it up on my walks on the seawall. Gavin Crawford is joining us now, and we're super happy about this. Thank you so much for giving us some time today.
Hi.
I have to say, I mean, when I first heard about the podcast, I thought, Gavin Crawford, okay, I like him. I like what he does. It's a podcast about things that are funny to do with dementia. What could possibly be funny? And then I started to think back through my own journey. I remember the day that my dad happily told the staff at the long-term care center, she's my girlfriend. And I thought, oh, we're having a moment. What were your moments like that with your mom? Because it's a surreal journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing about Alzheimer's is often it can go on for quite a long time, and it's sort of like there's very different moments, and some of them are just so bizarre that they can't help but be funny. I mean, I remember one time there was a phase where my mom sort of thought I was her kind of boyfriend from high school for a long time, and she would like sort of. One morning, it was Valentine's Day one morning, and she came down and she was like, well, I suppose you're going to the dance. I mean, you've got a ton of girlfriends. And I was like, what? The dance?
Wow.
Like, oh, right. She thinks I'm prank. And then I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to the dance unless I'm going with you. And then she was kind of like, well, we'll see.
And see, Gavin, that's
and
the
I'm like,
gold.
oh, burned.
Right? But burn, right? But that's the gold in it when you've gone on the journey, because you're not driving. When your loved one is going on this path, you're certainly not in charge of anything. You kind of follow the wave. And the lesson in just meeting them where they are is so big here, and that's so prevalent in your podcast.
Well, I mean, I think the thing is because I think for a lot of people it's very hard to, partly just because it's erasing your own kind of sense of your own self. Like when a person, I know for my father, it was really hard for him to lie. It took a very long time before he would like not want to correct my mom and be like, geez, Donna, I mean, that's your kids. Like, it doesn't help because you have to put yourself in their shoes. And like, if you thought you were talking to someone and they kept saying like, no, I'm your husband. And you're like, I'm not married. I know I'm not married. It doesn't matter how many times they say they're your husband. You're not going to believe it. So it only just leads to them being distressed. But you really do have to learn how to be okay with what is essentially lying.
Yeah, you know what? Well said. Yeah.
And for me, because first my mom got dementia, went in a home, ended up passing. My dad's currently in a home with dementia. And for me, one of the worst parts was seeing your parent and having to leave them in the long-term care home, and they're wearing a little bib, and you're standing at the door going, bye. I mean, that just crushed me. Did you experience that yourself?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that's sort of probably one of the hardest moments in the podcast. I said to my producers, I'm like, you get one cry during this, because that's not what I wanted to be about. But I think that's where the cry is used because, there's there's just a point where they're there and they're scared and they're like, why are you doing this to me? Why are you leaving me? And you can't communicate that it's not safe for them to be somewhere else. And you feel there's no way, even if it was like, I don't, like, in your mind, you're looking for like, the Rainbow Sprinkles Palace where everyone's like, has crafts and it's so fun. And it's just not that. And you always feel like you're like the mean step parent from like a kid's book that's just dropped your kid off at like Miss Horrifying's Academy of Discipline. And you're just like, when you read those books, you're like, how could these parents be so cruel to leave this child at this evil boarding school? And that's what you feel like. You just feel like you're just leaving your loved one of course the caregivers are like, professionals and caring and doing the best they can, but you can't help feel like you are abandoning them in some way, even though that's the thing that's the best for them. And how do you reconcile that?
That's the question, right? Yeah.
You and in a weird way, there is no way. So that's where you have to use humor in a way to kind of process those things. 'Cause you're like, this is dire, like, and I remember my mom, like at the beginning when she was there, she was hell bent on finding a way out. Like she would, they would call and be like, your mom is digging a tunnel with a spoon behind her bed.
We gotta run her.
And you're like,
we gotta run her.
And like, I remember I was there and she said to like the woman that was sort of standing by the door, and she's like, you know the code for this thing? And the woman was like, no, I don't. And she was like, well, you're no use. Which is like, and my mother's was like, pre-dementia, it was like the kindest, sweetest, most polite, very shy, would have never said that to anyone, but because it brings out all of this other stuff, and you're like, how much is this them? Is this just the disease? There's so many things that you just don't know. So it's, it's anyone that has experienced that journey. It's a real ride. And I think part of the reason why I wanted to make this podcast is because even if you have support people around you, you feel alone in it.
Yeah, it's true.
Even within your family, you tend not to talk about it because it's so weirdly devastating for people. Like I found I didn't even talk about it with my brothers and sisters that much, kind of as it was happening, because you just don't want to bring it up. And so, and then I was like, you know what, I'll do it on a podcast, and then it gives people some distance. They can listen to the story. And also I knew I had a bunch of funny friends who also had parents who were dealing with the same thing or loved ones dealing with the same thing, and I could get their perspective. And then maybe we could all just kind of, give somebody a little bit of at least comfort or points of recognition to be like, oh my God, I've been there.
Yeah.
And maybe
Linda's been that for me. Linda's totally been that for me in going through it. I want to ask you this for our viewers, because there are a lot of people who are about to or just dipping their toe into what the realities are of this. And it's very scary. As you mentioned, there's guilt involved, there's sadness involved. But for somebody who is just getting the diagnosis for a loved one, and is there a biggest lesson for you? Is there a one thing for Gavin Crawford that's like, if this is happening to you, here's my little bit of advice?
Spend the time that you can.
Yeah.
That's really all you could do. Spend the time that you can, and meet them where they are, even if it feels like, I guess the thing is like, don't cling to the old person, meet the new person as they introduce themselves every day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like because you can go through it being like they're disappearing slowly, or you can reframe it a little bit into being like they're becoming something different. And sometimes you can get too wrapped up in the sadness of what is gone instead of trying to explore what is there.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. I know that your mom has since passed, and our condolences, and because that's sadly also a reality for all of us on this journey. I've got, as I mentioned, both parents with dementia, and it's made me think, oh my goodness, do you ever think about what if that's your fate to go down that road yourself?
Oh yeah, I mean, we think every day. I mean, it's just like I joke about it and say like, it's like the one nice thing of my life now is knowing that I probably won't remember any of it at the end, so I can kind of do whatever I want. I mean, it's genetic. It's bound to. I mean, hopefully there will be some medical advances, but I mean, I worry about it to a certain extent, but I worry more for my husband Kyle than I worry for myself, because I probably, I won't know. But it has made me write a few things down, just to say like, look, if it gets to this point,
Right.
feel free to chuck me under the bus.
I'm curious to know what kind of reaction you've had to the podcast.
It's been really nice, actually. I just sort of did it because I needed to kind of process, and I thought it would be like a little small thing, but it's actually gone quite huge. There was a huge billboard in Times Square. That was really crazy to see.
I saw that. It's so great.
And it was kind of amazing, especially if you've got to the end of the podcast and you know sort of how it ends. The New York connection was really nice.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the nicest things is just I just get messages pretty much like, daily or kind of weekly now, because it's been out for a while, from just people who are just like, hey, I really liked your podcast. Like, my loved one is doing this, or there was a time when they do this. And it's sort of like, I don't know, my Instagram has become kind of like a little outlet for people to sort of like share their stories. And it's really lovely, because I know how much they want to say, like, like,
feeling less alone.
This looping phase, to just be like,
the looping phase.
Like,
oh my God.
I felt so happy to know that I wasn't the only one that literally like wanted to like choke them to death when they asked me the same question 1,500 times. Like I feel like less of a bad person, or so it's nice to know that it's helping people in a
that
little
it's
bit of a
rather
way.
universal in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a gift,
Because
Gavin.
you can feel like such a jerk when you're just like, wow, this is the
100%.
person who raised me and cared for me.
Yeah.
And now I am like a mom in a grocery store with my mom being like, if you ask me that one more time.
I loved your podcast, and I'm not surprised that it's resonating with people, because it's what we need to hear right now.
Yeah.
And, I love the fact that you're weaving some of the humor into it, because that's life. So
Thank you.
Thanks for being on the journey with us, and thanks for giving us some time today. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, and good luck with your loved ones. Have as much fun as you can.
Next time you're in town, come in studio. Open invitation, Gavin. We'd love to just play with the news with you as well.
Thank
Anytime.
you.
Absolutely.
Gavin Crawford. He's the podcast host for Let's Not Be Kidding. You will binge it. It's that
amazing.
good. You don't even need to have someone in the family who has dementia. This is a worthwhile listen. You'll laugh and you're going to cry.
Yeah.
Too. All right, coming up next on Seal and Vance, college football fans are treated to a little Mayo madness.
Why do you want me to barf, Linda?
What the hell is wrong with people?
Why? Why do you want me to throw up? Why?